Welcome. This is the joint meeting of the Senior Center Town Hall School Ad Committee, Building Committee. Called to order at 6:17. I'd like to thank Dan, our OPM, for coming in from his vacation.
Sorry I'm late, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay.
I apologize to everybody.
Apology accepted.
A
Thank you,
roll
Diane.
call starting from me to my left. My name is George Hooper. I'm the chairman of this committee.
Paul Malorani, Permanent Building Committee.
John Doherty, Finance Committee.
Teresa Manganelli, Finance Committee.
Paul Giro, Assistant Superintendent, Administration and Finance of Schools. Jesse Finley, Wilmington School Committee. Jack Holloway, Permanent Building Committee. Marco Crescentini, Senior Project Architect with Dietz and Company. My name is Phil O'Brien from the Johnson Office Associates.
Daniel Pilata, OPM.
Kevin Kyra, Selectman.
Greg Bendel, Board of Selectmen.
Diane Allen, Permanent Building Committee and Vice Chair.
And taking our minutes tonight is Rebecca Sanderson. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here.
All right, the next item on our agenda, our OPM is going to go through comments and introductions of our designers that are here.
Thank you, George. So our designers they just introduced themselves, one for the Town Hall School Administration Building, which is Johnson Roberts, Phil O'Brien, and Marco, who's with the Senior Center Building Committee. Between each committee's last meeting and this meeting, we told you we were going to come together as a team and create a matrix to try and help figure out what sites work and what sites don't work for each of the two projects. We developed this matrix with a weighted scoring on the lower part and even scoring on the upper part to try and see if we couldn't separate one site from another site. All of us agreed that the matrix was the way to go. All of us had different matrices, and we kind of merged all three of them together to make one. They were all similar, but they were all a little bit different, so we came together and made this one matrix. So that's what you have before you, and I think you had emailed it out, Mr. Chairman, prior to when we were going to meet a week ago. So, you know, I guess what we wanted to do was see if everyone was okay with the matrix.
That's the
Anyone
next
had
item
any
on the agenda.
suggestions?
Correct. Yeah, so everybody's had a chance to review the matrix, an opportunity to see what's in there, the criteria as far as the objective and subjective criteria. It's for each site location that we've talked about, the four locations. Does anybody have any discussion on the matrix itself?
I do.
Go ahead, Diane.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. I thought that another criteria that could be added to it would be adequate space, outdoor space for, and you know, that'll go for both buildings.
I think we've covered that with G, H, and Q.
Well, you have, as I interpreted it, is the building area adequate after applying site constraints? And the second one, is there available land area to support required parking facilities? I'm talking about the overall outdoor activities for us, for like the seniors, a pavilion or a walking trails or whatever needs to be done.
So I believe that would be covered in G. I know it says the word building, but remember that we went through the program, and the program includes outdoor space.
Right.
So I believe that when we score, we're scoring with the context of the building and the space, not just the building as a structure.
So we're going to take both of those in
That's
context of
in G.
scoring. Okay. And that's gonna be a combination of both of those
Yes.
thoughts? Okay, thank you. All right, then I have no further.
Okay, and again, to explain, so this is the criteria that we've asked our design teams to apply. So each one of them come up, and as we go through it, there will be chance for discussion to ask these type of questions also.
All right. One more thing, though, I thought when Dan was speaking, the Ys are presenting double the points.
Correct.
Will you just explain that before we go through the whole thing, why certain ones have the Ys?
So, the intent was to try and have a balanced matrix, and some things weigh heavily more than others. Sequencing weighs heavier. If we have to build one building, knock down another building, to build the building, there's a sequence to that. That gives you an inherent cost. So I wanted to weight that so that if it didn't have sequencing, it would be a higher number, and if it did have sequence, it would be a lower number. These are our suggestions. They don't have to be. You can change them to not being weighted. But the intent was these particular 5 items have more concern to the sites than some of the other criteria. Future expansion potential is, since we're designing for the future expansion potential is not quite as important as, whether the site is appropriate to begin with.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Diane?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Do I have any other questions about the matrix or discussion? All right, I think at this time I'd like to have a motion or entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the matrix.
Do I have a second? Second? All right, and I'll do
Would it be advisable, does Rebecca know everybody's names to identify yourself when you're making motions?
the motion was made by John Doherty, and it was seconded by Paul Malorani.
Melarani.
All in favor of this vote? Say by aye.
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 Unanimous? All right, next item on the agenda, I'll have our OPM lead our design teams on the review and compile the selection of the matrix sheets that they have.
So would you like us to
We'll start out with Dietz.
we'll start out with Dietz? You want to fill it in, and we'll fill it in?
Sure, Dan. Am I gonna take this one at a time? You're gonna lead me, and I can, because I have this.
Start with Site 1, Town Green Center, and
Just to be clear, so the audience knows, what we've asked is each one of our design teams to compile, to grade each one of these items. So when you see A, B, C, D down here on your objective criteria and your subjective, they are going to grade them or score them. And off to the side, you'll see the scoring is from, scoring will be 1, 5, or 10. Go ahead, Jim.
go ahead.
So Dan, do you want me to just say item A, wetlands restriction for the senior center?
I'd like you to start with A on the Town Green site and go down to Q.
And you can give an explanation as you go through, a brief one, you don't have to get into too detail.
Okay. So for site 1, the town green for the senior center, we gave that a 10. Is it okay if I go across and then maybe comment, or do I need to comment?
It'll be easier to enter down. Finish one site, go to the next site, go
Got
to
it.
the next site.
So item A for the town green, we said 10 for wetlands restriction. Item B, water service, 10. Item C, we said 1, because there is no ready sewer utility access. For gas service, we said 5. There isn't gas service, but we may not need gas, and it's close by if we do. So that was tempered as a 5. For electric service, we said 10. And storm service, we said 10.
Going on to site, oh, you wanna go all the way down, got it. All right. Adequate buildable area, we gave the town green site a 10. We gave the item H, adequate parking, a 5, because it fits, but it's tight. Use appropriate, we gave that a 20, because 10 would be doubled, because it's near other institutions. Item J, proximity to public institutions, a 20. It's near the schools and town offices. For item K, site visibility, a 20. It's right in the center of town on the main road. Vehicular access, a 10. Item M, future expansion potential, a 1, because that is a tight site and we have expansion space, but it's slightly compromised. N, existing development impacts, a 5. And that's mostly because it's in an area that already has school parking and lots of other town events, so there are existing developments. Project sequencing impact, again, a 5 because of high school parking. Topography, a 1 because of the large level change.
Wait,
Excuse me.
on the letter O, you said 5, is that supposed to be doubled to a
Yes.
10?
Oh, I didn't have that as a double, Dan. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
I have sequencing and,
So I had pre-filled out
That's all right.
ours from
That's
before,
okay.
and okay. So I'll
my
let you do that
mistake.
math.
So we'll make that a 10?
yeah,
So O is
it's
a
a
10.
10.
Because it could be doubled.
So Dan,
I'm a good bat.
yeah, okay. All right, so
Topography was a 1?
the topography's a 1 because of the level change right in the middle of the site. And then relative site development cost and complexity, we gave it a 10. That's not doubled, is it?
So that's
That's
a 20.
double.
That's double.
So Marco, can I ask you just on P, you were saying that,
Yeah, 20.
that was a 1, is that because of the hill?
That's right, because part of the site isn't usable. It does have the existing senior center building on it, but that could be repurposed, and, the available site area is divided by that steep slope that's right in the middle of the site, or towards the middle of the site.
So that brought that total to what, Dan?
So total on that was
No, 20, sorry.
46 on the top, and what do we have on the bottom?
168 for a total.
168 for grand total.
Existing town hall?
So, back to the top, line A, wetlands restrictions, we gave that a 10. Water service, a 10, it's ready service. Same with sewer, item C.
1?
Excuse me, item C, we gave that a 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Item D, a 10. Item E, a 10. And F, a 10. And that's because these utilities and it's all available on the site. Moving down to G, adequate building area, a 10. Adequate parking capacity, we said 5, because we're tight with parking, especially when you take into account the ball fields and the playground and. Item I, a 10,
Times 2? Or
and
five?
that's already doubled.
Okay.
So that's a 5 double.
5 times 2.
Item J, we said a 10, which was 5 doubled,
Yep.
because it's not on the main road. Item K, we said 2,
1 double.
that's right. Item L, we gave that a 5. Now, that's not doubled, correct?
Nope.
There's a slight variation there. And that's because of the windy road, and it's a town road, poor sight lines. Future expansion, item item M, we gave that a 5.
So is that,
Item N, we gave that a 1. Item O, that would be a 2, because that's doubled.
Yeah.
For item P, topography, we gave that a 5. And item Q, a 1.
So that's 2. The Q's doubled.
Got it. Thank you.
So, go ahead.
117, go ahead, Greg.
Question for you, Marco, on, maybe I missed it, but on, letter I, use appropriate, can you give a reason why? I know it-
So we said 10 because, you know, there are already ball fields, there's already a playground, there are other functions, it's not a dedicated purpose. So, yes, it's okay to be there, that's why we gave it a 5, but it's not ideal to, you know, to share the parking lot, to have other services on the same site. It's a slight disadvantage.
Any other questions before we move on?
What's the total?
Total is
17.
117. Whitfield, Whitefield?
Whitfield.
Whitfield,
All right?
342 Middlesex.
So
Existing
item A, we scored that a 1 because there are wetlands that do impact development. Item B, we gave that a 10. Item C, a 1 because it doesn't have ready sewer utilities. Item D, we gave that a 10. Item E, a 10. And F, a 10. And then going on to item G, we gave the site a 1 for adequate buildable area. It's just not really large enough. Item H, a 1 for similar reason. Item I, we scored that a 1, which was doubled to a 2. And that's mostly because of the commercial area around it. It seemed incompatible with us. Item J, a 2. It's adjacent to lots of commercial areas, but not institutions. Item K, a 10, and that was doubled from a 5. Item L, we gave that a 5. Again, because it's in a busy area, you know, I don't know if it would require a traffic light, left turn lane, you know, disadvantages. Item M, a 5. Item N, a 1, because of the existing soccer fields, and item O, a 1, which would be doubled to 2. Item P, a 5. And item Q, a 5.
So item Q is a 10, actually?
Excuse me, 2 is a 10. Q is a 10.
Q is a 10.
That would be 5 doubled.
Total is 86.
So let me ask you a question on your comments about fields. You mentioned that it's not adequate because there are fields there. You said the same thing here for the town hall site, and you said it at the Whitfield site because there's lacrosse fields or soccer fields. So you're taking that into account, that those fields are gonna remain? Because I would think that the fields would go in that site. So I think you should really take that into account, so you can use the whole parcel of land for, whether it be here or whether it be at the Whitfield School. So you're it's kind of being skewed a bit because you're leaving the fields in place. And look, we want a new building for the seniors, and if it takes up the fields, it takes up the fields. We want to see if it's adequate here or over there. So,
Yes, sir. We've done some preliminary reviews of the site and some preliminary layouts, and we never kept the soccer fields on that site. The soccer fields were always going away, but
okay.
it seemed like a real disadvantage to take, like, our understanding was that the town treasured those fields. It was the only dry soccer field after a rainy a rainy spell, and it seemed like that was something that the town cared a lot about, and so to take that away seemed like a detriment. Apart from that, it's also a small site.
Well, no, I understand that. I think both architects and the OPM have already talked, at least to the town hall, school administration building, that site wasn't viable. So I don't even know why we're entertaining it, but that's neither here nor there because it's one of the four. But I guess to get back to the other point, coming to a town hall, you're leaving the fields as is. I mean, if it has to take up some of the fields, then those numbers may be different, correct?
Well, on this site, the town hall site, we were told not to impinge on the fields.
And who told you that?
I think that was a general
I think that was a
understanding.
general understanding. I didn't believe that we had the authority to go on to fields. With St. Dorothy's, it was inherent because it's the only buildable area. With the town hall, there's buildable area outside of the fields. So, you know, if we made a bad assumption, we can correct it by changing the number.
Yeah, I mean, you
That's
can,
easy to do.
yeah, I mean, you can make this, the senior center, the town hall, or both the senior center and the town hall, and maybe we develop the 5, 6, 7 acres over at St. Dorothy's into fields. I mean, so that's why I think you need to take everything into account, and say that the fields, you know, have to go if they have to go.
Well,
I'm not a big fan of it, you know, but, I mean, we're looking at building a new senior center, a new town hall, so if that's what's,
Our charge was to,
Excuse me, let me just interject here. Marco, so if, to what Selectman Kyra is talking about, if we decided that we're going to eliminate these fields because we want to put a building here, what numbers and how would that change in your criteria?
Well, I'd want to look at them a little bit first, but yes, if we eliminated the fields, that would, I guess, double the amount of buildable area. So a lot of the constraints would go away, but.
Right, your objective criteria would stay the same, obviously, and it's just some of your subjective that you would look through, so your adequate buildable area, a lot of that's the same, parking capacity, that would change, right, so there's those particular numbers.
So yes.
But that would be only in consideration if we were eliminating these fields.
or through the chair, or some of the portion of the fields, not necessarily all the fields.
Well,
As Vice Chair said, a lot of this, you know, you have walking trails over here, and
A lot of the restriction is because of the field house that's out here that they use for Papuana, that's a permanent structure. A lot of the pickleball, which could be redone, some of the playground, that could all be eliminated. But some of that's permanent stuff that's out there that we would have.
through the chair, we could build a bigger and better field house for Papuana down further, where it can store, you know, more equipment and be used for both Little League and both. But, you know,
I mean,
I think we need to look at it all, including the fact that you have the possibility of utilizing this space possibly for both buildings and redoing the larger area over at St. Dorothy's, brand-new fields.
Yes.
So Marco, what I'm gonna ask you to do, not to stop you in the middle of this, we'll continue on to St. Dorothy's site, and then we'll go back to revisit site number 2.
Okay.
And look at some of those subjective criteria that are in there.
Okay.
And which ones may change with this new thought of,
Okay.
excuse me.
you know, clearly, Selectman Kyra is correct. I mean, we could do this, but, you know, in fairness to the design team and in fairness to the OPM, you know, our charge by town meeting was 2 separate projects, not combined,
Right.
and not to take fields. We were given specific areas to work in. I'm not saying we can't adjust on the fly, we clearly can. if that's the direction the town wants to go, this whole team will switch and go in that direction. But you know, just so everyone knows why we are where we are, that's why. All right?
Well,
I don't, through the chair, I don't recall the town meeting instructing to keep the fields, but that's fine. We came up with 4 sites, and we need to find out if those sites adequately fit and are appropriate for these 2 new buildings.
That's what we're looking at, that's what
Right,
we're trying to
right.
accomplish tonight.
Okay.
Okay, Paul?
Maybe, you know, in this 11th hour, I think maybe we don't want to do this, and maybe Mr. Crescentini might need some more time to look at these numbers. I think that committee members were pretty vocal about keeping the fields intact, and granted, Selectman, you were only there for half of the meetings you know, either the town hall, school administration building, or the senior center. But, you know, maybe for a compromise tonight, maybe we could come up with a double score. Maintain the score that we just got for this site, and then maybe create another score that says if we were to impinge upon the fields, an either-or kind of score. And I think that
Well, I'm looking at some of this criteria, and I don't believe a lot of them are gonna change. All right, so that's why I suggest we continue on with site number 4, and then this is the discussion that we'll have afterwards.
I just wanted to add that when we did our site visit and saw the well-groomed fields that, I believe they were they had lights, they had the field house, it looked like a fairly new playground, and it just looked like the investment there was not worth, like, getting in there and, like, you know, ours was not to decide to move and relocate the ball fields. It was, you know, how to best develop that site, and that just seemed like, you know, an element that was already in very good condition. It looked like it was very well used, and it seemed a shame a little bit of a waste to get in there and
Yeah,
you know.
and through the chair, don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating to do away with fields. I think we need more fields. I think we need more activities for both the young and the seniors, and more fields is a good thing. That's why we're trying to get areas like the Textron site and things of that nature. But if we're looking at the whole piece of property, then we're looking at it, is it the right spot?
So I
Please
can,
continue on.
after I do number 4, if you like, we can go back. I'll just follow you.
That's all part of our discussion.
While we're doing, Phil, we'll come back to you
Okay,
afterwards. 'Cause I'm
sounds
gonna
good.
have to add a column, it's gonna
Right.
take me a minute to play around with the form.
I can take care of that for you. All right, go ahead.
All right, so we're on A for Site 4, St. Dorothy, is that right, Dan?
Yes.
All right, we gave that a 10. Item B, we gave that a 10. Item C, a 10. D, a 10. E, a 10. And F, a 10. It has all those utilities and does not have any restrictions that had an impact on development.
G?
G, we said 10. H, we gave that a 10. I, we gave that a 20, because it got doubled. Proximity, item J, we gave that a 5, which was doubled to a 10. It is near Silver Lake, but not many other institutions. Item K, a 20, we doubled the 10. L, a 5. M, a 10. N, a 10. O,
N is a 10?
N is a 10, yes, that's right. O would need, I scored 10, but without the double, so that would be 20. P, we gave that a 5. And Q, a 10. Originally a 5, but it doubled.
Okay,
Total score of 190.
190. So I'm gonna ask, Mr. Chairman, start with Dietz. I mean, with Johnson Roberts.
Please.
You're up, Phil.
Thank you. The objective criteria on these sites are essentially the same for a town hall development, town hall school administration development as they are for the senior center, as far as I can see it, during our,
Phil, speak a little louder.
sorry,
No, that's not a microphone, that's for the
That's a WCTV.
TV.
just belt it out.
There you go.
That's it.
All right.
You're
So-
saying you're the same across the board? on
Basically,
top?
yeah, I mean, they're either there or they aren't, and in terms of the services, what they can provide for both of the sites and both of the uses, I think it makes sense.
That's for the objective criteria.
The objective criteria are
all
the
the
same
same?
across the board,
Are
yeah.
all the same across
Yeah,
the board.
right, we either have power there or we don't, there's wetlands issues or there aren't. I mean, if you wanted to try to get a little more fine-grained, for example, the town hall site, this site here has a little bit of a wetland impact, but it's really tiny, and it's right at the very corner of the site. I don't think it would impact a development on site all that much. It's really the only difference.
All right, would you go to your site one subjective criteria?
Site one is the town green site. For G, we gave that site a 10. For H, we gave that site a 10 as well. Use appropriate, I, we gave that a 10, double to 20. Item J, 10, double to 20. K, site visibility, that's a 10, double to 20. Vehicular access and traffic, we gave that site a 10. Existing development impacts, we called that a 5. That's
No,
N.
You want to go back to
I
M?
missed M, sorry. Thanks for keeping me on track. Future expansion potential, I gave that a 10 as well.
Now,
N, I gave a 5, thank you. O, I gave a 10, double to 20. P, I gave this site a 5. And Q, we gave that a 5, double to 10.
186.
186.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Now, for the senior center, under P, topography, they gave it a 1, but you're giving it a 5.
Yes.
So what makes one better than the other?
Well, I guess you'll probably have to ask both of us that question, but
Okay.
for me, I gave it a 5 as essentially neutral. When we took a look at the amount of program that we need to get on that site and the amount of parking that we need, we think we can accommodate that on the lower, pretty flat portion of the site, and we didn't think that the hill or the grade change between the parking area and the existing senior center was gonna make much of an impact on our development. That's why we rated it as a 5. It will be a little bit of a trick for us, which is why we didn't give it a 10. We may end up having to do, depending on how much parking we're trying to get there, we may end up having to do a little retaining wall, but I don't think it's gonna make a big impact on what we're doing.
Go ahead.
And on the other hand, for the senior center, we pushed our line of parking right up to the beginning of the slope, and we could have used more of that land to increase parking and to free up some more area for the building, and that to us was a big negative. Maybe it's subjective differences here.
Go ahead, Greg.
I think, if I may, I'm sorry. No problem. You're selecting, you always overrule me.
Go ahead.
I think what you're seeing is the true independence of the two architects
no room for future expansion. The other side says 10 maximum points you can get for future expansion. Do I have that correct?
That's right.
And we feel the same way because for us, a senior center, to be able to utilize that upper portion, unless we have like an escalator or something, it's just very difficult to get seniors up on that upper level. And so as a consequence, we couldn't put any program space up there. So again, that to me was a negative.
And when we walk the site, I don't think that the slope is as big a deal for the use that we're talking about for that site. From our point of view, we could, for example, do a two-story building, which would probably be trickier for senior center. Marco would know that better than I would. But, I mean, you could potentially take a two-story town office, school administration building, put it right into the hill, and take advantage of the change in grade to reduce the amount of exit stairs we have out of the building, for example. There's just a little bit, I think, a little bit more flexibility for us, and I don't see it as much of a detriment.
I appreciate the explanation. I'm not suggesting either one of you is wrong. It was the biggest takeaway for me that there was a
That's an excellent point here because you could actually walk out of the upper level onto that upper terrace, if you're doing a two-story building.
And I don't want to interrupt, but what I'd like to do is proceed on this, so once we get this filled out, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions. We can go in between each one of these sites, and we can ask those exact questions. All right?
Okay, H on existing town hall.
We're on G.
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 I'm sorry, G.
G, on site 2, I gave 5.
You gave it a 5? Is that what you said?
5, yes.
Okay. Okay.
H, I gave a 5. I gave a 5, doubled to 10. J, I gave a 1, doubled to 2. K, I gave a 1, doubled to 2. L, I gave a 5. On M, I gave a 1. N, I gave a 1. O, I gave a 1, doubled to 2. On P, I gave a 5. And on Q, I gave a 1, doubled to 2.
Whitfield?
Just through the chair, just to reiterate what I said to Marco, I believe, this is using just this area and not taking any of the field area. Because you have expansion potential in one, in this big area.
And that's again based on the existing site development, assuming that we weren't intruding upon that. That's
On the
right.
fields, okay,
On the fields and the playground and the walking paths,
okay.
so we are on G for site 3, right? I gave that a 1. H, I gave a 1. I gave a 5, double to 10. J, I gave a 1, double to 2. K, I gave a 10, double to 20. L is 1. M is 1. N is 1. O is 1, doubled to 2. P is a 5. And Q is a 1, doubled to 2.
Total 46.
That's just the bottom scoring, right? 88.
the top one
total
is,
score of what?
equates right across the top.
Total score
Was it 88?
is an
Yeah,
88?
88. I read the middle line. St. Dorothy's?
For G, site 4, I gave a 5. H is a 5. I is a 5, doubled to 10. J is a 1, doubled to 2. K is a 5, doubled to 10.
I again was 10?
I is 5, doubled to 10, yes.
2?
10?
K?
K is a 5, doubled to 10.
L.
L is a 5. M is a 1. N is a 10. O is a 10, doubled to 20. Topography, P is a 5. Q is a 5, doubled to 10.
$143.
Oh, that's interesting.
You want to see the bottom, Diane?
Can everybody see those totals? Does everybody have them?
St. Dorothy's is a little lower than I thought it would be.
The totals across the bottom,
From my point.
for site one, we had 168 on the senior center and 186 on the town hall school admin. On site number 2, for the senior center, we had 117. For the town hall school admin, we had 100. For site number 3, for the senior center, we had 86. And for the town hall school admin, we had 88. For site number 4, senior center, we had 190. And for the town hall school admin, 143. Does anybody need me to repeat any of those? All right, so, discussion? Do we want to go back and take a look at the existing town hall site? Marco, I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of look at some of your subjective criteria.
I
Which-
have.
Which ones would have changed if we were to eliminate the field and build on that site?
Okay, so items A through F stayed the same.
Correct.
Item H, I would have bumped up to 10, from 5 to 10, because with the additional space, I wouldn't have trouble with adequate parking capacity.
Okay,
Let's see. Item M, future expansion potential, I'd grade that a 10 now, because we'd have a lot more space. So that would change from a 5 to a 10.
Okay.
okay.
And can we go G, H, I, J, not just the changes?
Sure, yeah.
All right, so G would stay as a 10?
G is a 10. H would increase from 5 to 10.
Okay.
I is a 10, it would stay the same. J,
Well, it
Wait a minute.
was a 5, so it doubled to 10 originally.
So I goes to 20?
No, it would stay the same. It would be a 5 doubled to a 10. Because use appropriate, is the site appropriate for the intended use? I would have said yes. If I'm not taking the ball fields into account, I mean, that comes up later with existing development impacts.
So it would be a 20 then? Because it's a double.
I kept that score the same. I scored it
Okay.
a 5, it got doubled to a 10.
So use appropriate neutral.
That's right.
H and 10.
So H has changed, everything else so far is the same except for
Everything.
H.
Except for H, okay.
Right. Go ahead, Mark.
Jay?
So J, I kept the same at 10 because the ball fields don't change the proximity. K, I kept that as a 2, again, for the same reason.
Yeah,
Same for L, I kept that a 5. M, I increased to a 10 because I've got more area, more future expansion potential. N, I kept that as a 1 because, you know, the ball fields, the pickleball, et cetera, are an existing impact. O, I would move that up to a 10. That would be more favorable because we'd have more room to not occupy the town hall site while the new senior center was being built.
So that's a 20.
So would that be a 20?
So that would be a 20.
Yep.
Item P, I kept the same, a 5. And item Q, I doubled that, a 1, to become a 2.
So that's the same.
so it's the same.
That's right, item Q is a 2.
That's 18.
Marco, I'm sorry, what was N?
N, I kept that the same as a 1 because, yeah, for the same reason.
So you,
And P
so
is a
that,
5.
P as in Paul is a 5.
so I have that as a plus 28 over the original score, if my math is correct.
Only 3 changes, right? H, M, and O?
I have H,
M, and O, yes, that's correct.
That's 40.
And
Can you just run down from G to Q? Sorry, thanks. Just what the numbers are. 10, 10,
go down the list one more time,
one more
just,
time,
Okay, so from
G.
G on, I said 10 for G, H 10, I 10, J 10, K 2, L 5, M 10, N 1, O 10, 20, because that got doubled, P 5, Q 2. And then just for laughs, I'll say bingo. Excuse me.
All right, so that total would be 145
145.
with no fields.
Well, with some, maybe some fields, right? Not
Oh.
no fields in its
Yeah,
entirety.
or working.
Impact to the fields.
Impacting. the
impact
field.
to the fields is more.
145 is what I come up with. It's
Okay,
85 on the lower portion, and the upper portion stays the same at 60.
right.
Okay?
We have the same criteria, Mr. Chair, for the Whitfield School, because I think he took those fields into consideration,
Well, he
too.
said that he thought about just using that field for.
Yeah, there's no way to do Whitfield without taking the fields.
Right.
That's correct.
Now, Phil, can I ask you, can you do the same thing that Marco just did, as far as the subjective criteria? Would it be I'm not gonna put words in your mouth or numbers, but would some of your totals change also?
On site 2.
This is on
Yes.
site too.
Yes. What would you like me to do? Go all the way
Read,
down?
read from G down.
Okay, for G, that would move to a 10. H would become a 10. I stays the same. J
A 10.
at 10.
Okay.
Which is double the 20.
J stays a 2.
Yeah,
K stays a 2. L stays a 5. M becomes a 10. N stays a 1. O becomes a 10. P stays a 5. And Q stays a 2.
Okay.
40,
Well,
no, 5, 10, 15, 20.
no. 10, 8,
Oh, that's
18.
right. 9,
George, you got 127?
Yep,
67 on the bottom half?
That's what I got too.
yep.
27. I'm gonna call that 2A.
On O, you said 10, is that the 5 double?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
We should.
Okay.
The new total, sorry,
Was that 127?
127, 100 and 127.
Correct.
Not even considered.
For the chair, you're gonna have them do that to the Whitfield School as well? Because I know that would take away all of the fields, but it's still,
I
It's
think
still a
that was
site.
pretty much explained, that there was no way to do anything with that field, with that site without impacting the field.
correct.
So that was already implied, correct?
That's correct.
So these had the
Those
fields
numbers, the
eliminated?
Whitfield, I would say, well,
Yes.
we'll go through it, and it looks like it is
doesn't fit.
eliminated.
The town hall site, it doesn't even fit with, when we take the field.
What's that?
Even if we take the field, the town hall project doesn't fit on the
It's not
Whitfield
gonna
site.
fit on it.
Right.
So your numbers are not gonna change then?
That's right.
And you, Marco?
My numbers would stay the same because we already assumed that the field would go away.
Correct.
So I would have scored it the same way.
All right. Are there any questions from the committee? I'll throw this out to the audience too. Is everybody clear? Did we? Yeah, the revised numbers for the senior center was 145, and for the town hall was 127, and this was with the impact to the fields.
The senior center was 120.
Go ahead.
The way I counted it up on the senior center, the ones that would change would be H, M, and O, going from 5 to 10, 5 to 10, and 2 to 20. That's a change of 38. Added to 117 makes it 155.
What, the existing town hall site will have it?
What's that? Right, 28. Yeah, 28. Right.
Yeah. I still come up with 145 and 127.
Yeah, I do too.
There's 4 numbers that change on the town hall. That'd be item number G and H going from 5 to 10.
Yeah,
Item number M going from 1 to 10, and item number 2 going from 2 to 10. I think that number grows by 40.
So town hall, the third number that you read,
What?
the third number, I, was a 10, so it's staying the same as a 10.
Okay.
So there's no change there.
right, and when it goes from a 5 to a 10, it's not an increase of 10, it's just an increase of 5. John, did you have any questions? We clear? All right, so a discussion across the totals. I think it's,
I'm gonna bring the totals up, Mr. Chairman.
do you have the other ones? Can you large,
I can't make it larger because I can't get into the,
you can't right-click on that font and
is that what?
increase?
Oh, I can do it that way, I think a different version than that.
Go down below where it says, one right over, there you go, make it a, I don't know, make it a 50.
Yeah, gotta go a little bigger than that.
Yeah, you gotta go just a little
All
larger.
right.
Yeah,
Why did I hit the beach?
all right. 145, 127, all right, so.
Can everyone see that, or do you need me to bold it? I can see it. There you go, how's that?
If I were over there, I might not be able to see it.
27.
Numbers
I don't know how to center it.
Just my neck hurts.
All right. So review and discussion. Also in front of you, everybody has the buildable site locations, the maps.
I got two easy issues, obviously, the Whitfield.
The only thing that we've kind of had in question here was site number 2, which was our impact on the fields.
Mr. Chairman, when we're done, I'll redo this, clean it up, and I'll add 2 as 2A for site impact. Is that
Right,
okay with
and then we'll
everybody?
send it out to all,
And I'll send it out to everybody?
please.
Great.
So for the record, we rescored 2 as 2A,
Right.
and that's site with field impact.
All right, so, looking at this, I think it's kind of obvious, site 3, Whitfield site, is, doesn't qualify for either project. Am I correct? So we could eliminate that from our list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to remove that.
I make a motion, we remove site 3, the Whitfield School site.
John Doherty makes a motion to remove the site 3,
I'll second that.
Oh, Teresa.
second by Teresa Manganelli. I'll take a vote on that. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. All right, now it's gonna get a little trickier. The site that seems to have the, for the senior center, I'll go with that, seems to be site number 4. Any discussion on that?
I think site number 4 is a good site. I remember, we even looked at that in the facility master plan. And, you know, you have sidewalks along there, you have a bus route along there for senior centers, people there utilizing it. You have 2 access areas to it, you know, and there's a lot of area there for walking trails, and more importantly, I think the voters or the townspeople that would look at this, at least you're not impacting on any fields and taking anything away, because I think that's a big thing to overcome, impacting some of the fields.
I'd like to ask our designer, Marco, did you take into consideration on that site for, we'll say, 2 means of egress, roadways, road cuts?
We did. It is possible to connect, I don't have the plans in front of me, the 2 roads there. What was one, Glen
Yeah,
Road?
one down Glen Road, so.
Yeah, and so that is, it looks like it's possible. It's a little tight, there's a pinch point there, but we could probably make that work. One concern is that we didn't want to make it a shortcut, because it would be a shortcut, so we'd have to take some remediate, like we'd have to maybe put speed humps or something like that. But it did appear to be an advantage.
It is adjacent to Hardin Street, so I don't know if it'd be that much of a cut-through, but I'm just thinking of ease for seniors pulling in, pulling out.
I believe that the site was good. I guess I want to make sure that that wasn't one of the sites that had some sightline issues. I think there was a curve in the road that might potentially be an issue.
Yeah,
Right.
These are all items we'll study when we move to the next phase.
Right.
Because you can't solve all the issues on all 4 sites. So,
Okay.
I mean, we still have to do a survey, get the exact meets and bounds and topography, and we still have to do some geotechnical work, you know, to make sure that the earth can support the buildings.
Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one of the questions I have, probably for both gentlemen, is that at this site number 4, whether it was a senior center or a town hall, any building, clearly I know you could always build up, that's not a problem. But if you were to go multi-story building on that site, would the parking be impacted? Would it still fit? Presumably if you have multi-story building, more vehicles, more people, so.
Well, I found that a single-story building with parking, with what we consider the correct solar orientation, fit nicely on that site.
Single story.
Single story. We didn't consider a two-story senior center. We did take into account an approximately 5,000 square foot addition, future addition space. But that site, I'll admit, was a nice site. It was nice and wide. It wasn't narrow like the Whitfield site. Didn't have, you know, existing facilities like the existing town hall site. Definitely more room than the town green site, than, you know, the School Street site. So I would say that we would be happy with that site and feel that the design would come easy on that site. It would be much easier to design there than on the town site 1 or site 3. Site 2 might be about the same.
Thank you, Michael. One of the things that stuck with me, Dan, you may recall, and forgive me if I get the town wrong, but Westfield or Springfield, some of the projects he worked on, this has stuck with me for months now, that they built the senior center on the first floor, built the second floor but kept it empty so that the town would have future expansion on something. And I don't think they finished it, but they wanted to leave their options open.
So it was Westfield, and it is occupied in the second floor, but a portion of it is unfinished and is currently filled with medical equipment, walkers, chairs, things of that nature.
Storage.
That was one of the facilities
Became
we
a
got
giant
to.
storage area.
Yeah.
But yes,
And that's where my question comes from, that, you know, I guess I would be curious if the senior center was to be 2 stories at that location, could it still work? So I
Yes,
don't.
of course.
Okay.
There is some additional cost. Of course, a 2-stop elevator could be in the $150,000 to $200,000 range. You'd have to have 2 means of egress stairs. There, you know, that takes up more space on the first floor. You know,
I think one thing that, and you should all think about, is that the town hall school administration building is a lot larger than the senior center from a square footage standpoint, which will require more parking. So the amount of land disturbed on the town hall senior center forces it to become a 2-story building.
You've never been to their St. Patty's Day breakfast.
All right. John?
Just a question, on the senior center, you said there was going to be a shortcut to Glen Road. Would that impinge on any of the house lots that?
I'm sorry,
Would that
impinge on?
impinge on any of the house lots, the 5 house lots on the side there?
I don't believe so. You know, we haven't laid out anything in detail, but it looked to me that the entry, you'll have to pardon me, I don't recall the names.
And that was something I brought up just from the means for the seniors to be able to access it, you know, easily.
Only for the simple reason, the town has some valuable land there. And for that short narrow piece, if you can, I don't know what could go there other than houses. Why don't we just sell it off?
You never know if the
They're talking
rest
about
of it
making
could go up for sale someday.
We can't hear over here.
No, he was suggesting that if we didn't use some of that property, that we could sell it off for buildable lots for houses.
One of the, if I may, one of the ideas that came through my head when I looked at that, we talked about exiting on both Main Street and Glen Road, and then it left a small sliver of land. In my mind was almost the idea of a small playground where grandchildren were visiting with their grandmother or grandfather. That was one of the first things that popped in my head. So I don't know if I'd be as quick to sell it off
Right.
before we explored it.
Pickleball, bocce
Potential-
courts.
Well, we've all kind of talked about that extra outdoor space, and then that could be anything.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Paul.
to you guys. this area here that you say is not buildable? Is there a specific reason? Because it doesn't accommodate what we're talking about? Or is there wetlands or topography?
It's not wide enough to put a structure.
Okay,
You could, it's possible it could be an access road.
okay.
You know,
Could it be walking trails?
it
or
could be
some
walking
kind of
trails, it could be a
recreation
lot of
area?
things. We don't know till we do the survey,
Okay,
and, you know, we
But
get
it's not-
adequate
it's not
meets and
wet.
bounds, and let the landscape architects do their, you know, do their magic.
okay.
But the program of the senior center fits on that site.
But there is potential for this area,
Yes.
for something maybe.
Yes.
Future expansion.
Mr.
And
Chair?
it's potential to do nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's,
right.
and that's a good point. You could actually, not that I'm diving ahead, but you could put a row of parking, and with that parking, you could have different types of activities, a garden or whatever.
Could you fit a pickleball court out there?
Well,
Absolutely.
my, just to, I just want to piggyback a bit on what Selectman Bendel said about a two-story. Yeah, would you consider the first floor as the senior center and the second floor to be used as a community center? And that way there are organizations that need meeting space and whatnot, so there would be separate access to keep the senior center separate from the second floor?
I would design that at the request of the town and through P3, because we haven't been asked to do that. I imagine that we could work out a way that there'd be independent access, or a way to block off in case there are events that are occurring in one area when the other area is not open.
Yeah, I'd like to answer that too. It's exactly what we did in Greenfield. So Greenfield Senior Center, at the last minute became a community center, but it's a senior center all day long, and they have first dibs to it. And at nighttime, there is portions of the senior center that are electronically locked off, and other portions that can be used by the Board of Health and by, you know, the local AA chapter, whatever. However the management determines the building to be used, it can be done, and it can be designed that way. But the primary use will be senior center with the ability to use it in more hours. We're spending a lot of money on a building. We expect that Wilmington will want to use it as many hours as possible.
So,
And just to follow,
Mr. Chairman, may I say something? I'll defer though to you, Terry. You go first.
So my concern is, we started here working as this building being specifically for a senior center, now questioning a community center, implying that the senior center would not be used at night. And I really think that there will be night events. Now there is the space. Now there is the outdoor space. And so that would make it more of an active senior center where we can use it more, there's more active space. We can use it, you know, there's that option. So I'd really hate to have our hands tied, meaning the senior center, as to opening it up to the community and having us not being able to fulfill all the programs, because right now we're not able to.
again, just to follow up on this,
Zach,
since I brought it
Diane.
up. But I'm not saying that to impact the senior center, I'm saying it as to add to the community, so that the senior center would still be separate and be able to have its functions during the day and at night. It's just allowing various organizations and other groups to utilize a second floor if it so fits in that parcel of land. It's taking nothing away from the seniors in their ability to have activities in the evening at all.
All right, I'm gonna let a few more speak, but I don't wanna get too far off our objective of site selection tonight. It's not, we're not trying to determine if we're gonna change what we're focusing on here, but, Teresa, I believe you wanted to speak.
Yes, thank you. So my question concerns the site on Main Street, next to St. Dorothy's Church. And it appears to be the only site that is almost 100% wooded. Was the cost of removing and clearing that land included in your calculation of 10 for a relative site development cost? criteria?
Well, we were aware that you'd have to we did visit the site, yes, it is wooded. I think within the whole calculation, yes, although I would say that clearing the site is among some of the lesser expensive development costs that we have. The answer would be yes, we did take that into account.
All set? Diane?
Yeah. I was also part of a task force when we first started this whole issue of would the town build a new senior center. And of the several buildings that I visited, there was only one that had some use for community use. The rest of them all operated as individual senior centers. And as the years, what I found from them, what they said is, as the years went on and a different group, remember, we're planning this for 40 years, 50 years. A lot of different programs change. I'm the old one here, but what I have to look at is the 50-year-olds in this town that are eventually gonna use this building, those coming up. And programs are gonna change. Rooms may not change, but programs are gonna change. And from the calculations that we got from the master facility plan and the calculations that your firm did, we're pretty accurate about the volume of seniors that are coming along down the road. Thank God we are living longer and healthier. And I think that having the building just be for seniors, the building that I visited that had a compilation of some town activities, the director was so overwhelmed by it that they had to be taken over by the town for just those activities, because it became so complicated, rooms that were gonna be used, programs that were set. So they had to work together, and that particular part that belonged, that whole office area had to be sealed off so it wasn't available to the public. But it was just the mechanism of organizing the programs between the community and the seniors. So she just threw her hands up in the air and she said, the town has to take over what they want to use it for, and then we'll work with our programs together. So I'm in favor of just a senior center, hearing that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Chair, about this specifically, Marco, on letter M, future expansion, you gave it a 10.
On which particular site?
On site 4, sorry. Site 4, senior center, letter M, you gave it a 10 for future expansion. Were you considering our previous conversations that someday the church may not be there? Is that part of it, or
No, we did not take that into account. That's hypothetical.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so then I'm gonna test your skills here, okay?
Oh, boy.
All right, so, what I'd like to do is, now that we have our totals, maybe a row down below, you can go through site number 4, we'll go with the, senior center first, and we'll do our totals. So site number 4, I had as number 1 with the highest total.
Oh, you want me to input everybody?
Just so we know, I mean, we could do it visually, or we could do it up here, so, just rank in our order, right here.
I'm gonna do it by paper.
There you go.
Yeah, by the time I'm done clicking on this thing, it'll be midnight.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
On the matrix, are we going to be able to, I don't know if you're planning to vote on these tonight or not, but before we do that, are you going to be, or are the architects gonna be able to tell us how much of the fields are being impacted in those sites?
I'm looking
sites
at
too?
it, Kevin, to answer your question here. Even though with the fields impacted, it did not come out to our top site location.
Understand.
Right, so what I'm going to ask it to accept our total rules now, you know, I will ask the committee to take, for a motion to accept.
Mr. Chair, I only say that because, as Diane Allen mentioned about, we already have pickleball here, we already have walking trails here, we have a playground here. So I was just curious of how the field would be impacted, if we would still be able to maintain a football field and a Little League field before we made these decisions.
Marco, could you answer that?
I would say that we do not impact the fields, and nor did we impact that pine grove, you know, that area where all the tall pine trees are. So we left all that undisturbed, and in our plan diagram sketches here, you'll see there's a little green swath between what we call area that we can develop and the playing field. So no, we left those areas undisturbed.
But there's a town hall building in the middle.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. I'll have to ask to repeat.
You want to ask the question
Yeah,
again?
what impact will be on, how much of the fields are you going to take away in order to put a designed senior center on this site?
So
So
that
in
would
other
be,
words, you're gonna take one Little League field, and then there'll be 3 left with the football field? You
So
take
is
2
that for
Little
the,
League fields?
let me just to clarify, because we had, on this site, we had the 2 different questions here. One was to leave the fields intact,
Right.
and then to build on this site, so which you'd probably have to incorporate a structure while this building was still existing, or would this building have to be taken down? And then the second question, of course, how much of the fields are gonna be impacted by?
So I think, Mr. Chairman, as we went through 2, and I call it 2A,
Yeah,
the question was impacting the fields, all right? So how we're gonna impact the fields, it's not a fair question, not that your question is not adequate, because we haven't done the survey, and we haven't done the geotech. It's impossible for me to tell you where the line of disturbance will be, and it's impossible for Marco or for Phil to do the same. What we do know is that without disturbing the fields, we got a ranking. With disturbing a portion of the fields, we got a ranking. And that's the extent of what this exercise was.
with or without the field, it's the same ranking.
No, it was a little higher without, but it
No,
didn't change
if
the
you-
overall order.
Right, but if you look at it, just between the number 4 and number 2,
It doesn't change.
yeah,
It does change.
it does not change. Does not change at all. It still falls number, so if you take your senior site and you look at site number 4, it's 190, correct? That would make that number 1. You
Right.
take site number 2, number 1, and look at that 168 makes it the second highest. And then if you take, site number 2 and do the senior center at that total, that's your 3rd highest. So with or without that, it's
Still the same.
it's still the same.
The order doesn't change.
The order has not changed, and we have eliminated the Whitfield.
And, Mr. Chair, and that's with these gentlemen, and I'm not questioning their ability, but that's with them doing this kind of on the fly. I think they probably had a lot more time to evaluate doing the first set of criteria, but tonight they just, looked at it and, the 2, if they looked at the 2 and studied it a little bit more, it might be a 10. I don't know. I mean,
I think if it was closer, I mean, where site number 4 is a 190, and even with adding all the extra and doubling up, we still came to 146. I mean, we are still off by a good amount here.
Yeah.
So,
my point is that I want to vet everything.
Oh,
I don't want to be
understandable.
said that, oh, you didn't give that an opportunity or a chance. You didn't see how much of the land was being taken. The opportunity over at St. Dorothy's becoming all field and ball fields. If the senior center comes over here, which already has an existing pickleball and walking trails. That's all I'm saying, but we're not, I don't think we're giving it
I
The adequate
I
to-
would think at some point there needs to be a discussion or consideration about you know, and arguably it's a sunk cost, so there's been an investment, and I forget the dollar number, but clearly there was a investment of some number of dollars to construct a pickleball court not all that long ago. There's been an ongoing cost associated with the maintenance of those fields. Can they be replicated in another location? They can, but there's a cost associated with that. So I guess whether it's at tonight's meeting or if there's a deferral on a recommendation tonight at a subsequent meeting, I think this issue of whether those other whether the ball fields and all of that apparatus behind the town hall is going to be ripe for development we need to make a decision on that, because obviously from the architect's standpoint and our ability to go forward here, that's a pretty significant issue. If this whole site is being considered as developable, then that certainly changes the dynamics. If the constraint is we're dealing with largely the town hall proper, if you will, and the parking space lot and some fringe amount beyond the parking lot, then that clearly creates some site constraints.
I mean, you're gonna lose the fields for 2 years.
What's that?
You're gonna lose the fields for 2 years.
Correct, while
While
construction
we're
takes.
constructing,
Right,
just an FYI.
Yeah,
all right. And again, the objective here is we're doing these sites, and this is going to, even when we do take it to a vote, it'll be a recommendation. And it can always be brought up again. So I think it's pretty clear how it's spelled out in front of us, kind of working towards it. If the third site, after we add some of these criteria in there, is still the third site, it doesn't move it up to the first or even close. So I'm just trying to stay to our objective. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, could I ask Terry Masiello how she views the existing fields and that dynamic at this site as it relates to the senior population? Would it be beneficial for the seniors to have softball fields there available for them if they wanted? Would they be interested in watching the freshman football team at 3 o'clock on the football field? I'm just asking. I always thought that it was a positive to have the senior center attached to that type of environment. I'm wondering what you think the seniors would feel.
I think what comes up, I don't need a mic. I think the first question that comes up is parking. That's a concern of the seniors, as in that part. For there, as in watching, I can't say that that's actually come up in any discussion as to being near a field. So I really can't truly answer that question to you. Their top concern for a new senior center that comes out with is outdoor space to be able to use for their personal outdoor space, senior activities. And number 2, if not number 1, is parking. So, so my eyes are drawn to that, the way this is number 1, number 2, and number 3, with that being the third piece of property or this third site that's being looked at. I really don't know honestly, if that's a question, because it just seems to be standing out so clear. But again, so I really can't answer that question about the viewing of sports versus outdoor space and parking.
I just want to say one thing. First of all, my first part is that we've hired these gentlemen who are professionals, who have walked the site and have a clear understanding of a lot of the issues other than just looking at a piece of land. I can imagine having my other half that also is in that business, you don't just walk the land and pace it out. You're thinking of a lot of things as you're looking at this piece of property that's gonna be developed. So, I put a lot of faith in both of you tonight as you've done your rankings. And I know that this 2A thing was thrown on you at the last minute, but I know how many times both of you have been out to all of these locations. And I don't think you threw those numbers in just to put the numbers in. I know you all have a visual inside your mind of these properties that we have here, and I appreciate that. The second thing I just want to say is, and I know there seems to be some division here about the St. Dorothy site versus the existing town hall site. If the senior center were to go there, the disruption that would go on, first of all, you'd have to tear down, correct me if I'm wrong, the town hall to put up the senior center. And there's going to be relocation, and I think that's reflected in some of the numbers that you people put here. And finally, if that's going to take place, we're going to have to build the town hall first, and the senior center, if it's going to go there, is going to be put on hold until they can move into the new town hall. So, but as it worked out, with the numbers the way they are, I don't think I need to say anymore. Thank you.
Okay, now what-
Mr. Chair, just a point of
Okay,
personal
just so-
privilege.
I'm gonna
I mean,
go-
I have faith in these gentlemen as well. I don't want you to think that I don't have faith in them, or probably anybody here. And we're here to ask questions, and I think it's an appropriate time to ask questions, and this, I don't see any division here. I don't know where you see the division. I don't have a problem with the senior center going at St. Dorothy's, or any of the parcels, and same with the town hall, as long as it fits there appropriately. So I don't see a division. I see faith. I have faith and trust in their ability, and I think that we're here to ask questions. And I don't understand the comments, Ms. Allen.
Great, thank you. We've had a lot of conversation here tonight. I'm gonna go out to the public for some discussion. Also, I'd like to recognize Representative David Robinson for attending tonight. Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to ask a question or some discussion or anything that we've been covering so far? Could you please come up to the microphone? And if you would state your name and your address.
My name is Jenny Wilson. I live at
Sorry about that.
48 Grand Ave. And I know we're not talking about senior housing tonight, but I'm just wondering what spaces are left for potential senior housing.
That's not part of the topic for discussion tonight, and I don't think our OPM or anybody is ready to speak on that.
I mean, I was asking it because the St. Dorothy's at one point was suggested as a possible location.
Thank you for your question.
Hi, Ken Clarkin from 39 Reno Road. I had something, which I guess with the numbering, or is kind of gone by the wayside. But my concern originally was that the town hall site was more of a sports field site, and that the impact of any construction would impact Pop Warner, baseball, t-ball, cheerleading, pickleball, all of that during the time of construction. Also, there was the sequencing issue, which somebody brought up. And I also said that parking at the town hall site was an issue. Right now, there's about 78 parking spots out there. The senior center is slated for about 60. I'm assuming that's 60 new ones. That would bring you up to about 100 or so parking spots with a kitchen facility that's designed for 225. And I don't know how many cars that would entail. So I'm thankful it looks like St. Dorothy's is the one that won't cause any sequencing issue in construction. Both projects could conceivably run at the same time. Parking looks like it's not going to be an issue, and we had one other question, and this pertains to the town hall site. There's an underground storage tank, and I was wondering what that was. Is that still being used?
Underground storage tank.
Yes, there, that's noted
Oh, out here at this location, or the one over?
At this location?
in this location.
No, this underground storage tank that we had for heating fuel is no longer being used and will be removed.
Oh, okay. So it was for fuel, for heating?
Yeah, it was number 2 heating fuel.
Okay.
Correct. Any other questions from the audience?
I hope, Representative Robertson, I hope you might be able to provide a little context here. I'm happy. It sounds like a lot of folks on the committee and the audience think St. Dorothy's site's great. I noticed, and I agree with your traffic access. I was curious, do you predict a need with the site plan for any sort of periphery infrastructure upgrades, whether it be on Route 38 or Glen Road, depending on the access point with the project? I just know during peak hours of operation with Route 38, sometimes it's almost a literal murder to take a left, or at least what I would anticipate to be out of that site, depending on where the access point is placed.
So every site is going to have a little bit of access reworking, and we haven't developed the project enough to determine exactly what those changes are. I would not rule out maybe a turning lane from one direction or another. And when I meant about the cut across is that I would not want the public on the St. Dorothy site, I would not want the public to use it as a shortcut, but you know, seniors could use whichever entrance or exit they liked on that particular site. Every site is going to have its own nuanced response to traffic patterns. I just don't know what they are right now. That'll come forth upon further examination of the site and developing the site design.
And I'm sure if we needed any assistance with that or traffic lane, that Representative Robinson would help us out with that state road. Thank you. All right. Okay.
Hi, my name is Deborah Russo, 902 Lord's Court. I hope you'll let me review a little bit of history of the Senior Center. I won't take up too much time, but I wanted to remind everybody that in October of 2019, the Facilities Master Plan Committee met with the selectmen to do a presentation. And in the audience was a bunch of really passionate seniors who stood up and argued that now is the time for a new senior center. And the selectmen invited the Elderly Services Commission to do a presentation about why a senior center was needed. What kinds of programs would go on there, a lot of statistics, and they did, and it was really an amazing presentation, if I do say so. And you can see it on WCTV. It's called Senior Center Discussion, and it will give you so much information about the growing number of seniors in Wilmington and what their needs are and why the current senior center isn't adequate. The other thing that we asked for at the time was we asked the selectmen to sponsor an article for the 2020 town meeting for the sum of $8.75 million for a complete package for everything from the design to the construction of the senior center. And they didn't. What they did instead was offer 2 articles for feasibility studies, one for the senior center and one for, surprise, a new town hall administration building. So the town meeting was on June 27, 2020, and 295 people were at that meeting, town meeting. I was one of them. Article 14 was about the senior center, the feasibility study, and it was overwhelmingly supported, voice vote. Article 15 for the town hall / school administration building, not so much. The vote was 108 yay and 65 nay, which meant that less than half of the voters at town meeting approved it. If you start talking about moving the senior center to the current town hall site, that means that, as Diane pointed out, a town hall is going to have to be constructed where the senior center is now. Seniors won't have any place to go. And then they're going to start a project of ripping up the fields. And if you think the Pop Warner people and the baseball people and whoever are not going to approve of that, you're right. They're not. And we need this to pass a town meeting. We need our senior center. So I'm asking you, please, build the senior center at St. Dorothy's. Do it now. Do it now. Don't touch the town hall just yet. Not just yet. Do the senior center first. When the time is right, the senior center comes next, and then maybe the current space here could be used for affordable housing. In the October 2019 meeting of the one that had all the seniors rising up and talking, one of the things that happened was the town manager said that this process could take anywhere from 5 to 7 years. And I didn't say tick-tock then, Suzanne. But what I did say was that it was entirely conceivable in 5 to 7 years that some of the seniors at that meeting wouldn't even be around to see a new senior center. And sadly, I was right, because I went to the town clerk and she told me that since 2019, over 550 people have died, most of them seniors. And one of them was Mary Dion, who was on the Elderly Services Commission and a passionate advocate for affordable housing. So I'm saying again, please build the senior center at the St. Dorothy's site. Now is our time. Do it now. And maybe we can have the space for the affordable senior housing for the people that have given so much to this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is George Allen, 7 Stonehenge Drive. Listened to these presentations tonight, and I've listened to every meeting and every presentation. And I think it was a fair evaluation, and I think you've made some good recommendations. The town hall being at what I would call the town common on the Swain site. And I'll talk about that first before we talk about the senior center. But the town hall should be located at that Swain school site. If you ask people on the street, where is Wilmington Center? Some people are going to tell you it's the intersection of Church Street and Main Street at the set of lights. Some people will say, this is Wilmington Center. Some may even say the town common is Wilmington Center. But our forefathers, when they were developing the town, where was the first town hall? It's a little down Middlesex Avenue, right across from the Congregational Church. That was the original town hall until 1984, and this was supposed to be the temporary town hall. So here we are in the temporary town hall. The town hall should be where the high school is, where the library is, where the town facilities are, so we can have what I would call a true New England town center. That's where it should be. The numbers also show that. So I think that's a good choice for the town hall. Regarding the senior center, St. Dorothy's is another good choice. Regarding the discussion and all the time we've spent, or you folks have spent, talking about taking the football and the recreational field away, to go to town meeting and say you're going to take some of those fields, political suicide. This will not pass. You're wasting your time to even talk about it. So, and besides, that's a third-ranked site anyway, so I don't even know why we're talking about it. In summary, good job by these guys. I think they made good recommendations. I hope the committee will follow those recommendations. Thank you.
All right, so I think it's pretty clear, the ranking that we have in front of us. Do we have any discussion that we want to go there, or I would,
I'd like to make a motion, if you're ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that the Senior Center, Town Hall / School Administration Joint Building Committee accept the matrix that we've created here tonight and recommend that the site for the Senior Center would be the St. Dorothy site, is ranked at number 1 by the matrix, followed by the number 2 and number 3 ranking according to the matrix. And that the Town Green site would be the number 1 site for the Town Hall School Administration Building, as ranked by the matrix, followed by the number 2 and number 3 sites ranked by this matrix.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Diane Allen. We'll take a vote.
Hold there, discussion.
Oh, excuse me, discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so I'm clear, I'm reading item number 10 on the agenda, recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. I just wanted to try to make sure I have a good understanding. The recommendation to the Board of Selectmen would be that this group of, these two committees come together and believe that these are the 2 articles that then should be formulated in the spring for April 30th annual town meeting. Is that my reading?
Being the chair of both of these committees, what I'll do is I'll make that recommendation to the town manager, who will present it to the Board of Selectmen, and then that'll be moving forward. And I know that each one of you are also the liaison for the selectmen, so you'll have that discussion, so they'll be fully aware of what this joint committee is.
That's kind of where my question is coming from. I want to make sure I'm clear to my colleagues when we're talking at a future meeting, whenever that may be, that the recommendation, this is the final recommendation, and that this group is looking for potential of an article to move forward for the annual Springtown.
Correct. Any other discussion? Sure.
If I may. The town meeting doesn't need to weigh in on the site selection.
No.
Only the Board of Selectmen need to assent to the recommendation of this committee. And upon that approval by the Board of Selectmen, both committees will split and develop their sites. And if they're ready for the town meeting, we'll come to town meeting. If we're not ready, we'll do it until we're ready. I want to make sure that.
Thank you, because
Yeah.
this is why I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think town meeting weighs in. I think you have the sole authority as the custodians of land, and you can correct me, Jeff, if I'm wrong, but I think you have the sole authority to say yay or nay on the recommendation of the volunteer board that has made the recommendation.
So that, just to be clear, your comments, so that the articles may not be ready for this annual town meeting, maybe in the future.
Oh, for this annual? Wow.
Yeah,
I think the senior center may, I'm not so sure that the town hall will be, but we'll see. I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We plan on working hard on behalf of the town. And I suspect that if we're ready, we'll be asking to be put on the warrant. And if we're not ready, we won't.
Right.
We don't want it, we don't wanna do it incorrectly.
Once we've identified these sites, we've assigned them to each one of the projects, and then there's going to be the design and the construction cost. So there's a lot of information that has to be compiled before we
We have to
bring it.
design it.
Yeah, it hasn't even been designed yet.
I mean, we're gonna have, when we go to town meeting, we're gonna have elevations, we're gonna have, you know, scale drawings showing parking, showing landscaping, and have a developed cost of what it'll cost. So we're nowhere near that today. All we are today is that we know that we have 4 sites, and we just eliminated 2, when you have a motion before you on separating one to one committee and one to the other, subject to the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
And I appreciate this discussion, because we've got to take it back at a future Board of Selectmen meeting, and I want to make sure that I'm articulating this correctly to my colleagues, who are all much brighter than I am, so I got to do the best I can to keep up. And so, just if I'm hearing you correctly, the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that these sites would be designated and that our architects would move forward with their work on those particular sites into the future, which may or may not conclude at this annual town meeting.
I believe that's correct.
Mr. Chair, I would agree, and I would refrain from necessarily making the motion inclusive of the town meeting. Certainly, we will endeavor to move these projects along as quickly as possible, and if it is possible, and it certainly seems like it can be, to get the senior center project prepared, we'll try to do that, but I'd rather do it right, and even if that requires a special town meeting in 2022, rather than, you know, trying to just jam it in for the 2022 town meeting. So I think the intent for tonight should be, if possible, to get a recommendation from this committee as to the sites, with the expectation that if in fact the Board of Selectmen endorse the recommendation, then the consultants will, you know, exercise all due diligence to move the projects as quickly as possible to the point where we can have articles that will, you know, identify the cost associated with the construction.
So it may come a time where you're looking for us to call a special town meeting in the fall?
Yeah, I mean, if it is not possible for one or both of these projects, for us to have an article for town meeting with the appropriate information and costs and so on, my recommendation would be, if necessary, to have a special.
Okay.
And just to clarify a little further, so the discussion, will Dan or the 2 architects be there? Because the other 3 selectmen may have questions that only they can answer? I mean,
No, that's not in that contract, no.
No.
Just kidding.
Our OPM will be there.
Yes, of course we'll be there.
I'm just checking.
You took my one vacation day, Kevin.
Want to make sure that you're going to be there for us. Yeah.
No, I think we should be there, and I think there could be different questions, and I think we should be able to answer all the questions to the best of our ability, just as we've done tonight, assuming this vote gets voted. Because you haven't voted yet.
Well, one step away. I think we've gone through a lot of good information here, a lot of good discussion, a lot of input from the public, so, any further discussion before I ask for the vote? All in favor of accepting the motion that's been seconded in the matrix that's
Can we
here?
just clarify again the motion, please?
Yeah. Do you want to repeat your
Yes.
motion?
I move that we accept, when I say we, the Senior Center Town Hall School Administration Joint Building Committee, I move that we accept the matrix that we've created here tonight, and that we recommend to whoever the town manager sees fit, the St. Dorothy's site for the senior center as number 1 on the matrix, followed by number 2 and number 3 as represented by the matrix for the senior center building, and the town green site for the town hall as number 1, followed by the number 2 and number 3 sites.
So to be clear, the number one site for the senior center is St. Dorothy. The number one site for the new town hall, would be the town green site at School Street.
Mr. Chairman, not to be the fly in the ointment, but is the recommendation to the town manager or is the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen?
It would be presented to the town manager to give to the Board of Selectmen.
I just want to make sure we're clear.
Okay. Are we ready for the vote? Oh, Ellen?
Paul, the motion you just read off included subsequent sites, 2 and 3, where the first motion didn't, so is it to?
It was the same.
It was the same, I'm sorry, I made it correct.
Okay.
And to Dan's point, it says the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, which wasn't part of your motion, should that be put in there, just to make sure we're covered, because we're gonna move forward
Yep,
with these two sites, we wanna,
right, it'll be to the
it said
Board of
just
Selectmen.
to the town
To
manager,
the Board
should
of-
it be
I'm
town
sorry,
manager, Board of
Does the
Selectmen?
town manager recommend to the Board of
Board of
Selectmen?
Selectmen,
That the
Tell who
town-
wants to vote on it.
Okay. All right, ready for the vote? Any more discussion, we good? All in favor?
Aye.
Looks unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda is public comment. I think a lot of people did have a chance to speak. Does anybody want to say anything else? State your name and your address, please.
I'd like to say that extra land at St. Dorothy should not be sold for houses. Having outdoor spaces is very important, and COVID has taught us that. So I'm sure that we could come up for activities and things for that extra land.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else from the committee? One more item on the agenda? Motion to adjourn, do I have John Doherty, motion to adjourn, do I have a second?
Second.
Teresa Manganelli, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
WCTV, connecting our community. WCTV, connecting our community. Wilmington, Massachusetts.